Okay, let's see what we have here. I'm gonna break this open. One leaf. Commander NV400 digital scope. Now these guys contacted me and actually did a pretty good job. They first gave me some pretty good compliments about the channel. I like the way I do my reviews. And by the way, this is kind of sponsored by them. I've told you guys before, if I get products for free or they give it to me, I will tell you right up front. That does not mean I'm not gonna run this through the ringer and test the hell out of it, because I will. But it shows you, knowing my history with doing some reviews, that these guys are pretty confident, because there's been some other people that have approached, turned them down because there were stipulations on what I could say. And other guys I've hit up didn't necessarily like. They wanted to control what was said. So these guys, they know this. We're going to get on with it. But before that, before we really dig into this, last week we had a rough overview of it's not the Nova Freedom, it's the Aspen, the 22 cal. Just got done shooting 25 yards with that, a little bit slow, but we're going to go out to 50 yards and we're going to put the scope on it and test. But before we get into that, as you can see, the title, we indicate why a digital scope. What are some of the advantages over optical scopes, and what are some of the advantages of optical scopes over digital scopes? So we're going to get into that. I have about 8 reasons why you want an optical scope over a digital scope, and then 13 reasons why you might want a digital scope over an optical scope. Okay, about 8 reasons. First, no batteries. 0 batteries, not going to run out on you. Yes, it's happened to myself here. The batteries, it gets cold, they get run down on some other systems. That has improved substantially in the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, but it is an advantage for the optical system. The build quality, if you get a good scope, it's been tested. Some of the designs haven't changed for years. And then that kind of comes down to the warranty. You know, you get a 5-year lifetime warranty. Leopold, beat the crap out of it, snow, run it over, just send it into them. They'll give you a new scope. That's hard to beat. A lot of the digital stuff is like 1 to 5 years, but just so you know, that kind of thing goes on. Higher resolution opticals. It's just when you're looking through an optical scope, you see better resolution. It's not a representation. It really is what it is. And so when you zoom in, there's some scopes that are 10, 40 power. When you zoom in, it kind of keeps to the same amount of resolution and the crispness, where in a digital scope, you might have a 12K monitor, and then when you zoom in, you're looking at like 6K and then 4K and then 2K. So you start getting a degradation in the image quality. But just to know that if you're really like the nice optics during the day and you want to see, especially with PCP rifles, you want to see what you shoot and the impact, a lot of times it's a lot clearer with a 40 power high dollar optical scope versus a digital scope. Adjustability, MOA adjustability, up, down, sideways. Many of these scopes, the higher end ones, will allow you like 25, 30, 40, 50 MOA within the scope. You're able to do the turrets. That's an advantage. Adjustability on the fly, meaning there's a system in place, the MOA system in place. If you have windage and you got your ballistics, everything can be calculated out. You just start cranking, you can get where you need to go. The digital version of that is a little bit tougher. You kind of have to simulate, or there's some workarounds. But just know, if you're used to that traditional system, it's going to be a little rough at first. It goes to saying first focal plane, second focal plane. Your 0 doesn't change in some of these high dollar scopes where you're able to zoom in and you don't have to adjust your MOA. Just know that on some of the digital systems, it's kind of the same way. You got to watch how the zoom affects your point of impact, and I guess your 0 and your cursor. So why would you want a digital system? Well, there's about a dozen advantages. One immediately noticeable is one shot 0, meaning first time on the bench, just put it down. You aim your cursor at something and the bullet hits here. You go in digitally and you see it where it's at, and you can move the cursor and set. That's a 1 set 0. It is beautiful the way it works. It's simple. It cannot be understated how fun that is, zeroing versus trying to crank up your turrets and you take a shot and you take another shot, especially if you're out in the field and you lose your zero as far as your scope gets banged around. It could take you 2, 3, 5 shots before you hunt and you can actually scare animals away. One shot is so much better than 5 or 6 in that kind of environment. Day-night vision. So digital scopes are absolutely awesome for this, like no fuss muss. Day vision looks at it good. Night vision, it has a better amplification at night. Even without the IR light, we'll get to a sec. But if it's low light, you're able to kind of raise the ambient light to be able to see stuff. So many times it's almost been pitch black. And with the digital scope, you can see really, really well where even a high dollar optical scope you can't see. And then if it's pitch black, you're out there where there's no lights, there's no moon, you literally can get an IR infrared torch. Now it will get you out 200-300 yards. Next is the video recording and picture taking. This is awesome. There's nothing else to bolt on to your digital scope. It literally is you push a button, you start recording in 4K, high speed. You don't have to bolt something on. If you want to take pictures, you're able to take pictures, just push a button and you're pretty much good to go. Connections to your scope. Now this is awesome because you can get a tablet, you can get a phone, you can make adjustments to your scope on the fly, or you can hand it to a friend if he wants to see what you're shooting at, any of the targets. He can watch what your scope is seeing and that. And so what are the adjustments? This is where things get kind of interesting, is in what's called profiles for a digital scope. Profiles allow you to kind of have 2 and 3 scopes on your gun and not mess with anything. So you could set up your zero and have one profile at 50 yards, load in, push a button, profile 2, have that zeroed at 100, profile 3, and 300. You could obviously, you could bolt this on, you could take it off different guns and put it on, and as long as you have a consistent mount, you can just switch the profile to like an AR-15, a 223, an air rifle, and be able to adjust it. So there are plenty of things. This is digital, so you're able to kind of manipulate your HUD. And that's the other thing, the advantage. You have a HUD readout. You have the tilt of the gun, your north-south. You're able to see, like sometimes through your weather apps in your phone, that will be put up in your HUD for wind speed and everything else to adjust. And then you have your reticles. You could read in different reticles. A lot of them have like 10, 12 different reticle types, and it has different MOA settings. And that's where street lock or chair gun, you can look at that and put in like a ballistics, calculation within those apps, and it will tell where your pellet or slug or your bullet's going to hit. So it's like having more than one scope on your rifle to be able to adjust to the, whatever you might want to see. Picture in a picture. Being this is digital, you can actually have, let's say, a 20 power scope and then have a picture that's 40 power. So you're able to really kind of get a wide view of the field of what's around, and then be able to line up in a picture, your cursor on the specific point of interest and be able to make sure you got an accurate shot. That is, it's really slick, not something to be able to do in traditional optics. Lastly is the gold standard, or what we're trying to achieve with digital scopes, and that's automatic ballistic coefficients. So we have range finders in these digital scopes, which is an advantage. But in addition to that, we can tie all this together. We can use our wind, we can use our yardage because it's got a built-in rangefinder, and we can use our ballistic coefficient. So the coup de grace, the end goal for all this, we have not found anything yet, or at least I have not been able to find a scope that does it very reliably, but the future is there where we can tie in the ballistic coefficient, your windage, your yardage, everything, and be able to self-adjust, automatically adjust your cursor for the drop you needed. It would calculate you're going to have 200 inches of drop at 300 yards, but our zero was at 50 yards. This is possible. Just they're getting really close. It's gonna happen, and when it does, this is for PCP air rifles. This will be the gold standard. This will be just awesome if you can get it to work. So there you guys have it, like 12, 13 different advantages for digital scopes or the optical ones. Kind of want to know what your feelings are. Stay tuned. We're going to give this a review along with the Aspen 22 out on the range, 55 yards. I have the 25 yard results that I might put out. I might combine them, but yeah, Aspen's looking pretty good as well. I'll show you the results coming up. Hit that subscribe. See you guys next week.